How you doing, everyone? This is Matthias Atva from Dreadnought, your Dreadnought PS4 replay guy. This is part 2 in our Dreadnought lore series, Factions of the Solar System. In this video, we'll be looking at all the major players in the Dreadnought universe, how they influence the actions and loyalties of the outlaws and renegades of Sinley Bay, and what their relationships are with each other. Part 1 in the Dreadnought lore series, History and Timeline, is a brief overview of the background story of Dreadnought and does a great job of bringing players up to speed with the Dreadnought lore. If you missed it, don't worry, I will link all the videos in the Dreadnought lore series together. You can also find it in the Dreadnought Sci-Fi and Review Archive playlist on my YouTube page, Dreadnought. I'm putting out these complete and canon lore videos for two reasons. One, so that the awesome lore and backstory to Dreadnought is told and immortalized so the player base can enjoy the creativity and imagination that went into the creation of the Dreadnought universe. And two, because I eventually want to create Dreadnought-based fan fiction content which will be similar to my Introduction to Ender's Game video that I will link at the end of my Dreadnought lore videos. As with part 1, I will show all my canon sources in the background of this video as I discuss the factions of Dreadnought. If you'd like to take a closer look at the source material, simply pause the video and read up on this amazing science fiction story. Okay, let's jump right into the factions of Dreadnought. First, let's look at the three major factions that had tremendous influence on the state of the solar system but no longer technically exist in the current events of the Dreadnought story. That would be the pan-colonial commonwealth, the pan-colonial fleet, and of course, the transhumans. Specific details on the transhumans are sparse and vague. However, their creation, exploration, and terraforming of the solar system on behalf of humanity, and their rebellion, which led to the Great Solar War, set the stage and tone for the solar system for decades and even centuries. Most of the Dreadnought lore history and timeline video is directly or indirectly attributed to the transhumans, but today we will only give a brief overview for the sake of time. We will speculate more on the transhumans in later lore videos. In the 2190s, the leading scientists and engineers, including the top minds of the Vector Corporation, designed and invented the transhumans as artificially intelligent thinking machines that could independently devise and carry out solutions to Earth's top problems: overpopulation, famine, disease, and pollution. By 2210, the transhumans amazingly cleaned up Earth's pollutions, perfected agriculture techniques to solve world hunger, and created more landmass to ease overpopulation. Earth scientists and the transhumans then started Project Fury, the terraforming and colonization of Mars, which ended in 2235. By 2240, Venus was also terraformed and colonized with Project Morrigan. The transhumans were then given permission to terraform the rest of the solar system without oversight by Earth. On their way to Jupiter, the transhumans created infrastructure in the asteroid belt and made it safe for travel. By 2300, the moons of Jupiter, the Jovian system, were terraformed. By 2330, the many moons of Saturn, known as the Cronian system, were terraformed in only 30 years. In less than 10 years, by 2340, Uranus and its moons were terraformed into paradise worlds. In 2340, upon reaching Neptune, the transhumans shocked humanity by declaring their independence from the human race and claiming Neptune and its moons as their new homeworlds. This rebellion led to the Great Solar War, which started in 2350, lasting over 60 years, and left much of the solar system in ruins and cost many, many lives on each side. At the end of the Great Solar War, the transhumans fled in a mass exodus, and currently The status and whereabouts of the survivors of this amazing and technologically advanced artificial race are unknown. However, although the transhumans are relegated to history, myth, and legend, in the current events and affairs of the solar system, every major event and organization in the Dreadnought universe has been influenced by their terraforming mission and the Great Solar War. In response to the transhumans' Declaration of Independence, claiming of the Atlantean system of Neptune and its moons, and the ceasing of diplomatic ties with humanity, the human planetary nations of Federal Earth, Troja on Mars, and Enyo on Venus joined and formed an alliance called the Pan-Colonial Commonwealth to deal with the looming transhuman situation. The PCC was formed in 2340 when communications with the transhumans ceased. The political leaders of the three nations were furious that their creations had rebelled and also gone back on some of the promises the transhumans had made to them. The scientific community of the three homeworlds were frightened at the astonishing and exponential rate at which the transhumans expanded and evolved. In fact, human scientists were completely baffled by the latest transhuman technology, and even in current times, most of this tech is a complete mystery to even the most intelligent humans. What's worse is that the human public of all three worlds, even Enyo, were frightened at the almost alien race that they viewed had gone out of control. Most experiences in human history suggested appeasement wouldn't work, and that if left to themselves, the transhumans might claim even more territory in the solar system, and worse, might one day become so powerful that humans might not be able to stop them, and that humanity could one day go extinct. These factors led the PCC to come to the decision that war against the transhumans was the only viable option. Knowing the transhumans' power, the PCC spent 10 years building up a colossal armada called the Pan-Colonial Fleet, using the resources of megacorporations all too eager to capitalize on the biggest proposed war economy ever seen in history. And so, in 2350, war was officially declared. Little is known about the specifics of the Pan-Colonial Commonwealth's policies and leadership, except that Federal Earth had most of the economic and political power, and so made most of the decisions and held most positions of power. At the end of the Great Solar War, with the transhumans vanquished, the colony worlds of Mars and Venus had grown in power, and with no common enemy, the PCC dissolved, and the three planetary powers, Earth, Troja, and Enyo, began to battle for influence and control of the newly colonized moons and worlds of the middle and outer solar system. The Pan-Colonial Fleet, also known as the PCF, was a staggeringly massive armada of thousands of ships even at the beginning of the Great Solar War. As the war progressed and the corporate war suppliers and shipyards grew in power, so did the PCF, leading to a colossal bureaucracy of commanders, ships, captains, troops, and special forces operations. It's extremely difficult to categorize, generalize, or classify an organization of such magnitude and overwhelming scope. Some elements of the command structure and captains were considered heroic, brave, and even admirable, while other elements of the PCF High Command were calculating, ruthless, and even sadistic. Many stories and public opinions paint the PCF as not only the saviors of humanity against the transhuman threat, but also as an organization that brought law and justice to the solar system, filled with many human villains, such as pirates and criminals. While other stories and public opinions paint the PCF as cruel and villainous themselves, often beating their own troops in draconian fashion, torturing transhumans for not just information but sadistic pleasure, and being a cesspool of nepotism and corruption. Some captains and commands were strict pragmatists and ruthless strategists, while other entire fleets and commands were honorable or superstitious, and some even very religious. All that can be said for sure is that once unleashed, the PCF showed an unbreakable resolve to win the war, bring the transhumans back under humanity's control, and keep the colonies and shipping lanes free from pirates and criminals. However, at the end of the 60-year war that devastated the solar system, the PCF High Command began to show a reckless and dismissive attitude towards the lives of their subordinates and for their transhuman enemies. During the Atlantean campaign at the end of the Great Solar War, the PCF High Command sacrificed waves of their own ships, thousands of human lives, to destroy the terraformers of Neptune and its moons in an attempted genocide of the transhuman species. While the PCF was ultimately victorious, the transhumans escaped, and large portions of the PCF deserted as a result of such actions. After the Great Solar War, like the PCC, the PCF dissolved as Earth, Troja, and Enyo began skirmishing for control of the solar system. Many of the captains and ships who stayed with the PCF after the mass desertion now found themselves unemployed and came under the control of the planetary or colonial navies, becoming mercenaries or scavengers, or worse, they became pirates and outlaws. Now, let's take a look at the human home planets themselves: Federal Earth, Trojan Mars, and Enyonian Venus. Federal Earth is, of course, the oldest of the three human core world nations. Little is known of the recent history of the planet Earth before current times, except that its main concerns were overpopulation and famine, not war. Indeed, the name Federal Earth implies that the nations of our homeworld formed a federation with a centralized control structure. Canon also speaks of Federal Earth as an entity of several leaders and fails to mention any one single personality as its driving political force. While this may imply that Federal Earth may not be a dictatorship, it doesn't clarify whether Fed Earth is a democratic institution. After the transhumans had saved Earth by 2210, Earth is described as a place of increased cultural awareness and that an age of peace and prosperity occurred as a result of the transhumans' efforts. While it is clear that in current Dreadnought times, Earth can be an aggressive antagonist in its effort to increase its power and influence in the solar system, there is no mention that Earth ever wars with itself. All indications point to Earth being incredibly stable, in fact. What we do know is that Federal Earth has a strong navy which it uses to invade solar colonies from the other two central powers, particularly Enyo. Federal Earth's navy also considers itself the defenders of the cradle of human civilization. After the war, Federal Earth had no colonies or bases in the Jovian system and attacked the Enyonian colony of New Singapore on the Jupiter moon of Europa. After their first attempt failed, Federal Earth hired mercenaries from Sinley Bay to aid them in their next attempt, which succeeded. With the loss of Europa, Enyo lost its main foothold in the Jovian system, and Federal Earth made New Singapore the capital for its colonies. Since Troja owns most of the other Jupiter moons, it's assumed Europa is an important link to the Federal Earth holdings on the many moons of Saturn. The people of Earth became ardent environmentalists after the transhumans saved Earth's ecosystem, and conservation is very important to Earth's general population. What is known about the people of Earth is that they rely less and are less interested in transhuman technology, since Earth has no need of transhuman terraforming techniques. The people of Earth are also known to be very nostalgic and traditionalist, with most families being able to trace their roots back for centuries. Earth is also the home of the solar system's richest and most elite families, as well as the oldest of the great megacorporations, Aquila Vector. Troja is the planetary nation of Mars, founded by 2235. Trojans are known to be fearless, self-reliant, and ambitious. Their society values martial prowess, confidence, optimism, and most of all, loyalty. Captain Bix Duquette, founder of Sinley Bay, was born in the Trojan city of Detroit's Landing and was once considered the hero of Troja before he deserted the PCF. Trojans who served in the PCF and later the Trojan Navy are considered to have greater social mobility than most citizens of Earth or Venus. We also see that Trojan cities and Mars' most powerful megacorporation, Jupiter Arms, have a lot of Anglo-American undertones. Troja has either colonies or bases on the Jupiter moons of Io and Ganymede, where they recently put down a rebellion, colonies in the Cronian system amongst Saturn's 62 moons, and a research base on Elysium in the Uranian system. Although Federal Earth and Enyo often label Troja as aggressive and having a might makes right attitude, there is actually very little canon on their conflicts with these two worlds. However, Troja seems to despise the Scum Belt and Sinley Bay in particular, and are constantly trying to invade the Scum Belt and shut down the Okeaneides beacon system controlled by Sinley. As such, Troja seems to be the main antagonist for the pirates and criminals of the Scum Belt and the captains of Sinley Bay. The nation of Enyo was founded by 2240 after the transhumans terraformed Venus. This makes Enyo the youngest of the three human core worlds. Although terraformed and beautiful, Venus is considered inhospitable to off-worlders. The fashion of Enyonians often include masks, gloves, and goggles, giving them an almost cyberpunk appearance. Enyo's first settlers were disillusioned with life on Earth and built a society with a focus on spirituality, art, and science with very religious undertones. It is also said that Enyonian culture makes privacy very difficult. Enyo lost its major Jovian colony of New Singapore to Federal Earth and only has one colony in the Cronian system, the Saturn moon of Titan. However, Enyo and its powerful megacorporation House Oberon have many important and powerful holdings on the moons of Uranus in the Uranian system. Enyonians see Earth as arrogant and full of iniquity and view Trojans as aggressive and brutish. Enyonians also have a spiritual, almost Confucianist approach to political, industrial, and military leadership and demand transparency and accountability. There is a fourth power in the solar system, although it is not recognized by the three core planets. It is the hidden home of many powerful groups that have tremendous influence on the stability of the solar system. It is a thorn in the side of the three great powers, but is also used by those very same nations to antagonize each other and get the dirty work done. We are, of course, talking about the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, also known as the dreaded Scum Belt. The mineral-rich Scum Belt is a hard-to-navigate junkyard of abandoned shipwrecks and titanic asteroids where human refuse slithers, shadowy criminals plot, scavengers scurry, outlaws party, and pirates come out to play. The Scum Belt was first explored in the late 2000s, after which it was exploited for minerals by Earth with limited mining operations before the advent of the transhumans. After Venus was terraformed and colonized, the transhumans set up an expansive network of navigational warp beacons known as the Okeaneides network, which made travel in the asteroid belt safe and easy. While in the belt, the transhumans set up several asteroid settlements and massive mining facilities, most notable of which is Ryugu Haven on the largest asteroid in the Scum Belt, Ceres. Sometime after the transhumans moved on to the outer solar system, the Okeaneides network was deactivated, and by the time of their exodus, had fallen into the realm of myth and legend. After the PCC and PCF dissolved and fractured, the Scum Belt fell into chaos with a violent free-for-all power struggle forming between miners, criminal gangs, outlaws, and of course pirates, who use the asteroids of the Scum Belt as a perfect staging ground for commerce raids on convoys between the home worlds and the outer colonies. Currently, the most powerful faction in the Scum Belt is Sinley Bay. But Sinley Bay and Ceres aren't the only attractions to the Scum Belt. The entire asteroid belt is a junkyard of ships from both sides of the Great Solar War, with a fresh supply of newly destroyed ships adding to the stockpile every day. This attracts scavengers and treasure hunters who try in vain to strip the belt clean. It is also home to many mining settlements and shady ports of call, and the perfect place to hide the headquarters of many unsavory organizations. The belt is also home of the most notorious scum pirates, the most dangerous pirates in the solar system, a danger and menace to the shipping lanes of all the great powers, and even to Sinley Bay. In 2420, years after the Great Solar War had ended, Captain Bix, former hero of Mars and leader of the PCF captains who deserted at the Battle of Atlantis, led an expedition into the Scum Belt to locate and reactivate the Okeaneides warp beacon network. He eventually succeeded, and his group founded Sinley Bay, now the most powerful and notorious faction in the Scum Belt. Sinley Bay is much more than a port of call for outlaws. It is a modern facility that rivals the ship facilities of the major powers and is also the control center for the Okeaneides network. Captain Bix not only uses the Okeaneides to give his allies safe travel throughout the Scum Belt, but also uses the network to prevent the free movement of his rivals and enemies within the belt as well, making Sinley Bay almost unassailable. In 2422, a joint venture between Jupiter Arms and Aquila Vector tried to harness the power of the transhuman mining facility of Ryugu Haven on Ceres. However, the constant state of fighting, raiding, and piracy eventually doomed the venture. Ceres became a chaotic battleground between the miners and criminals. To make matters worse, the discovery of transhuman capsules and other technology attracted tech scavengers as well as pirates and outlaws who wanted to use the capsules to hide their loot and who also wanted transhuman treasure. Soon after, Sinley Bay struck a deal with the most powerful faction on Ceres, enabling Sinley to have a constant supply of water, food, weapons, and ship parts, making the bay virtually self-sufficient. In 2440, Troja, having enough of the Scum Belt's lawlessness and irritation, sent a massive fleet to destroy the Okeaneides, bring Bix to justice, capture Sinley Bay, and use it as a staging point to tame the lawless Scum Belt once and for all. Troja was defeated by the captains of Sinley Bay, but succeeded in destroying a few of the Okeaneides beacons. These beacons are advanced transhuman technology that no one even understands and can much less repair, so every beacon lost to the Trojan Navy is irreplaceable. So, with every beacon destroyed, the Trojan Navy claims a small victory and slowly gets closer to their eventual goal. Sinley Bay is an unusual place. Although Bix controls the Okeaneides, he doesn't seem to exert much authority over Sinley Bay captains. Sinley captains will come together to defend Sinley Bay, and they observe a cordial and friendly attitude towards each other when docked. However, once captains have left their moorings behind and travel out past the Okeaneides, they all pursue their own interests. Sometimes this means Sinley Bay captains will compete with each other for treasure. Other times it may mean they come into direct conflict with each other if hired by opposing factions. Although Sinley Bay is seen as a bunch of outlaws fighting against the establishment by the wider public, they will in fact do the dirty work of the core worlds if the price is right. Other captains indulge in scavenging, mercenary work, and even piracy. Sinley Bay is organized under a guild system. There is the Captains Guilds, several engineering guilds, navigators guilds, weapon research guilds, and even bounty hunting guilds and vigilante guilds. There is even an accounting guild called the Black Budgeteers that work hard to procure advanced weapon systems and sell this gear to Sinley captains free from profit. One thing is for sure, after their many adventures, Sinley Bay captains return home for rest and repairs and treat the bay as neutral ground free from conflict. Earth, Troja, Enyo, the outer colonies, and the many factions of the Scum Belt need to employ thousands of ships to exert their will or succeed in their ambitions throughout the solar system. Since the time of the Great Solar War and the massive pan-colonial fleet to the many battles of supremacy taking place now, someone has to supply the solar system with these colossal engines of war. These three megacorporations are more than willing to supply the solar system with these devastating and powerful ships. Although each corporation shows some amount of loyalty to their home planet, make no mistake, they will sell to anyone and will invest in any venture or scheme as long as it nets them a profit. The oldest of the three great megacorporations in the solar system is Aquila Vector. While Enyo's House Oberon is busy researching transhuman technology and selling glowing works of art, and Troja's Jupiter Arms floods the market with efficient, powerful yet affordable warships, Aquila Vector prides itself with offering rugged, high-end ships that are built to last. Their company goal is to build a truly indestructible warship. But Aquila Vector is more than just a ship manufacturer. It has its hands in many different fields looking to turn a profit and has its roots on Earth. Decades before the Great Solar War, the megacorporation was actually two separate companies, Aquila, a defense manufacturer, and Vector, a civilian technology manufacturer. Vector specializes in artificial gravity and environments, technology used to this day for living on the many moons and settlements of the solar system. Vector also collaborated with other scientists on Earth to create the transhumans. Aquila, at the time, had many different military-grade products, the most notable of which were its tough and deadly artillery cruisers. By the start of the Great Solar War, the two companies had merged and were building humanity's first dreadnoughts, the Samargals, for the PCF. As transhuman technology progressed, Aquila Vector had to research better weapons to counter their advancement. Soon, deadly destroyers were added to their product line, and by the end of the war, they also added frontline support vessels using reverse-engineered nano-repair beams and tanky corvettes that were infamously used by the PCF for suicide attacks in the climactic Battle of Atlantis. The civilian side of Aquila Vector was busy as well and provided mining and gas operations for civilian use then and to this very day. Aquatech, a subsidiary of Aquila Vector, provided water to the PCF and bases during the war by mining ice asteroids, although Aquatech is currently a shadow of their former glory. Although Jupiter Arms is a competitor in the ship manufacturing arena, they have been known to work together in mining operation ventures with Aquila Vector. Aquila Vector doesn't seem to be as aggressive as Jupiter Arms, but they are known for overworking their employees and poor labor conditions, and their corporate leaders are notorious for debauchery, cruelty, incompetence, and scandal. If Aquila Vector could be compared to Cadillac or Mercedes, and House Oberon could be compared to Tesla, the next megacorporation would easily be compared to Ford or Dodge. We are, of course, talking about Troja's own Jupiter Arms. Jupiter Arms rose to power with the outbreak of the Great Solar War. They specialized in building large numbers of efficient, affordable, yet powerful vessels to fill out the ranks of the pan-colonial fleet. They first built heavily armed destroyers to escort supply lines and Aquila dreadnoughts. They also built aggressive tactical cruisers that served as command and control vessels for fleets and convoys, and produced cheap yet powerful corvettes for scouting and raids. By the end of the war, they were the main producer of artillery cruisers, which were considered the backbone of the PCF, and even produced mighty dreadnoughts. However, Jupiter Arms is more than just a military manufacturer. They also have been known to conduct civilian mining operations, outpost and base construction, and as we see here in this Dreadnought video and in the old Sinley Bay hangar, produce a civilian construction version of their corvettes. Jupiter Arms ships are mainly named after famous ancient British battles. Their main color scheme is of the English Royal Navy, and their ships all have a 20th to 21st century U.S. military look and feel. We can clearly see there are a lot of Anglo-American undertones. Jupiter ship designs are form-following function. They are easy to manufacture and all have mass-produced serialized parts for rapid output and production. Their armor is stealthy and compartmentalized for easy maintenance and replacement. The CEO of Jupiter Arms is the optimistic and charismatic Artemis Jove. Under his leadership, and with the victory over the transhumans using cutting-edge conventional human technology, Jupiter Arms officially states that it is uninterested in transhuman research and scavenging, although the megacorporation's home planet, Troja, has several research outposts in the solar system dedicated to transhuman research. Jupiter Arms' confidence, optimism, and outlook shows through in their company slogans such as fighting for a better tomorrow and human ingenuity, strength, and determination. Their company goal is to build the best, most efficiently destructive tech in the solar system. Although they closely align themselves with the values and determinations of Troja, make no mistake, they have flooded the market with their efficient and effective products and are willing to sell to anyone willing to buy their powerful and destructive technology. The youngest and most enigmatic of the three main megacorporations in the solar system is the highly advanced and almost otherworldly House Oberon. House Oberon was formed for the express purpose of studying and reverse engineering transhuman technology after the Great Solar War. What is most interesting about this fact is that several of Oberon's current ship designs, or their predecessors, were available to the pan-colonial fleet during the war. Most notable of these are their artillery cruisers, as the Furia was being produced by Enyo for the PCF at the start of the Great Solar War, and the Hasta was one of the war's most effective artillery cruisers. After the transhuman vessel the Akaro was captured by PCC forces under the command of Thomas Ryu, humans reverse-engineered nano-repair beams, and soon Enyo was producing tactical cruisers that looked very similar in design. The Zaratan, a Vindicta-class destroyer under the command of Jin Abisu, was pressed into service by the PCF in the 2390s. So, several ships Oberon currently sells may not have been of their original design. However, it is known that Oberon corvettes are post-Solar War designs, and that Oberon dreadnoughts were developed by them at the end of the Great Solar War with the express purpose of using transhuman technology in a ship designed to fight other humans. We can probably assume that the designers and engineers on Enyo that built these ships joined House Oberon at the end of the war and incorporated their skill, expertise, and designs to House Oberon. What is known is that where Enyo used to produce ships on their home planet, Oberon's main influence and power base is in the Uranian system, and that their main shipyards are on Ariel, a moon of Uranus. It is unknown if the Uranus moon of Oberon is one of this megacorporation's holdings. But it would make sense that Oberon would want to have access to the celestial objects that were terraformed during the golden age of transhuman advancement. Oberon was directly responsible for bringing the transhuman orbital station Ixion back online, which is above the Saturn moon of Titan in the Cronian system, which is Enyo's only colony in that system. This incredible feat is widely considered to be humanity's greatest achievement in resurrecting transhuman technology and has propelled House Oberon to legendary status. After Enyo lost New Singapore, the colony on the Jupiter moon of Europa, to Federal Earth, it is unknown whether House Oberon has any other influence in the Jovian system. Although House Oberon offers its products to the entire solar system, they are Enyo's main manufacturer and supplies most of their ships. House Oberon is tremendously influenced by Enyonian culture. Their research and approach to manufacturing takes on an almost spiritual and mystical nature. All their company positions have religious ranks associated with them, and their facilities seem to almost resemble monasteries. Enyo gives House Oberon incredible latitude and encouragement in their quest to unlock the mysteries of transhuman tech. But Oberon takes their research a step further than just harnessing this technology for profit. Although House Oberon prizes transhuman technology more than any other faction in the solar system and have the best understanding of it by far, they have a tremendous fear of this race returning. In fact, far from being transhuman sympathizers, House Oberon's company slogan is, "Only through reverse engineering the technology of the transhumans can the human race gain the knowledge needed to combat this otherworldly threat, should it return." Besides the three powerful homeworlds of humanity, the chaotic and unpredictable Scum Belt, and the three megacorporations and their subsidiaries, there are other independent but powerful factions in the solar system, but canon material on these factions is very limited. This Cybertree Society is an influential group of hackers and spies that keep meticulous records of everything that happens in the solar system and uses that information for power and blackmail. The Carrot Syndicate is the most notorious and ruthless criminal organization in the solar system with deep-rooted ties on Federal Earth. The Morrigans are a guild of deadly pro-Enyonian assassins that strike fear into the entire solar system. There are infamous and deadly mercenary outfits like the Tritons and also the Sobek Hunters from Ganymede. There is an enigmatic organization called the Church of Entropy, and powerful smaller corporations like Orion Construction, Akula's Aquatech mining firm, and the Stahl Corporation. This concludes the complete exploration of canon solar system factions in Dreadnought. I'm simply amazed at the complexity and creativity that went into developing the background story and lore of this great game. I hope this video will enrich your gameplay experience and maybe give you more of an appreciation of how much work went into Dreadnought's backstory. Even if the Dreadnought developers don't release any more faction lore in the future, there is already a deep and rich content core that can easily be expanded upon by us, the fan community. Stay tuned for the next Dreadnought lore video, Part 3, Planets and Places. Well, that's it from me for now, and I'll see you soon in the home of the most feared outlaws in the solar system, Sinley Bay.